Welcome to Really Cool Stuff for the Home podcast, sponsored by HomeWorks. And now with today's show on all the ways to improve your home is your host, Denise Sanchez.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Denise Sanchez from HomeWorks, where we bring you all kinds of really cool stuff for your home to make your homework better for you. Now, one of the things that we do in our showroom is we don't just point at a machine or an appliance and tell you, here it is, and here's your specs or whatever, and this is the cost. We really do educate you on why we have them as the offerings that we do and what they do and why you'd want them, and so on. During non-COVID times, we even have cooking events and that sort of thing. But today is a really special a section that we're going to do. And, right now we're in the tail end, hopefully, of COVID-19. This is 2021 now. But we just experienced in San Antonio a huge, all of Texas and the South, a huge winter storm. We were without water. And in fact, I had no water for 5 days. Thank goodness I had electricity. But there are still some of our neighbors that don't have water, or if they do have water, they're having to boil water. So during these times, and I can see this, coming up more and more, and with our enlightenment about what we need to do to be safe, whether it's through viruses or, bacteria from foods or, any number of things. This segment is going to be what is clean. And we're going to be talking with the amazing Jeff Polucci, National Sales Manager for Miele. Very, very, very informative. Lots of fun. He always delivers the message, and you can take it because it's like a spoonful of sugar going down because he's such a cool guy. You really are, Jeff. I love doing these video podcasts with you because you inform the audience, but it's easy to digest. You know what I mean?
I
really
do.
is.
Yeah. And today is an especially relevant topic, so
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Right. So Miele offers some unique products. And I think one of the reasons why they're able to do this is because their background in their commercial offerings, like the dishwashers and all. But I want to kind of get you, because this is pretty much, you're going to be doing all the information, and I'm going to be asking you questions because we have not even really tagged about what we're going to talk about. You're going to surprise me, I think. So what is clean according to Miele or the offerings that they have that can help, resolve this?
Well, I mean, you can't. It's such a broad topic, and the problem is that the requirements or the protocols or the standards that are set forth in commercial, say for example, in water-based appliances, we have really four levels, right? We have residential, we have professional, we have commercial, and then we have lab, medical, dental.
Right.
And every one of them, let me take that back. Lab, medical, dental is the only one that really has very, very specific standards that have been set. Because if you're washing, say, let's say you go to the dentist, and you know how the dentist puts those metal things in your mouth, and the picks and all that stuff. When he's done with that, he's got to clean them. And if the mechanical device that he's putting them in doesn't clean them, then the next person that sits in that chair, something's going to be transferred. So there are very, very specific protocols and standards that are set forth by ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, by the CDC, and you have to meet those. But when you get down into residential, there's almost nothing. It's almost crazy when you think about it, that when you look at residential protocols, there's almost nothing. I mean, even when you in terms of requirements,
right,
even when you go to any store and you look at just say any brand dishwasher and it has an NSF sticker on it, okay, that doesn't mean anything other than it meets a certain heating protocol, meaning it will heat water at a certain rate. It does not necessarily mean it gets to a certain temperature. And it definitely doesn't mean that it holds it
Right, which is
So,
required for sanitizing.
but it's required in commercial. It's
Yeah.
not required in residential.
Right,
As a
right.
matter of fact, even when you start getting down into residential washers and dishwashers, the requirements for dishwashers are different than the requirements for washers.
Why is
And as a
that?
matter, and as a matter of fact, the recently, like, see, COVID's opened up a whole can of worms, right?
Right, right.
Because now all of a sudden everybody's looking at this stuff and realizing, wait a minute, there's no real definition here.
And it's important that we have one.
Well, I guarantee you that's going to happen because there are too many people right now who are concerned about, when I do the sanitized cycle with my dishwasher, or when I do the sanitized cycle with my washer, am I really doing anything?
Mhm.
Right? So, for example, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, okay, they have a combination of stipulations for residential washers. Okay, let's leave commercial alone because that's its
Okay.
own animal.
Yeah, right.
But for residential washers, their stipulation is you've got to hold 160 degrees for at least 25 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay, good luck finding a residential washer that will do that. All right. Now, it just so happens that we do. As a matter of fact, we've done it on multiple cycles for many years, but no one else does. Okay. But when you get to dishwashers, there's really nothing. There's nothing. I mean, there's no minimum temperature. There's no minimum time. There are just heat rating protocols, and that's all they are. Now, it just so happens that when we put together our protocols for what we're going to do, we do work with CDC. We do work with the National Sanitation Foundation, NSF. We do work with the Rheinwald Institute of Applied Sciences over in Germany. We work with these organizations because even if there's no established protocol for residential, we still want to make sure that we are exceeding any parameter that they might come out with, right? So,
Right,
so,
yeah.
so we do. So, why don't we do this? Why don't we talk about one category at a time? Otherwise, it gets very confusing. So, why don't we start with dishwashers, and we'll end with laundry
Okay.
because
And I
they're
have
just
a
different
question.
animals.
I remember being in one of their factories in Germany, and they were explaining how they used hydro pressure. Are they doing that still to form the actual frame of the dishwasher?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that contributes a lot towards hygiene because
Right.
when you look at it's called hydroforming, and when you hydroform steel, you bend it in a way that you eliminate seams.
Hmm.
Okay, and bacteria love seams.
Right. They
They love
lodge in there.
crevices, pockets, seams, anything where the water can stay there and not move. They absolutely love to go in there, make house, set up an apartment, bring in a car, and just build a whole family. They just love it. But hydroforming kind of prevents that. So we've used that technique for a while now on our dishwashers. On our washers, well, okay, let me get to that later because that's a really cool thing. So with dishwashers, yes, we hydroform our base pans to help prevent the formation of bacteria, but also to help prevent the accumulation of mineral sediment and rust through in the corners. Because if there's no corner, nothing can rust through, right?
And then so they bring that to the residential models as well.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, for example, when it comes to the um, dishwasher temperatures, okay, what a lot of people don't realize is that um, pretty much every brand will actually stipulate in their user manual that you need to what's called either purge the line or run the tap prior to pressing start.
Mhm.
And they'll say, hey, we're going to get to 150 degrees or whatever. What they don't really make clear to you is that if you don't run the hot water first
Mhm.
and get the water at the tap to 120 degrees, they're not going to reach that 140 or 145 or 150. They're not going to reach it.
Because the
So,
water's
and
coming in cold.
that's right. So they're not going to. And by the way, once you start the machine, the water in the line oftentimes cools, especially if the pipes are near the outside wall,
Mhm.
or if the water coming in is under the ground. It's cooler. So you're only getting the temperature in your main wash the first time. You don't get it in the final rinse.
Right.
So for example, one of the things that we do, that Miele does, is no matter what cycle, and no matter what machine, as a matter of fact, this is our what we call our minimum core functional properties. Okay,
Right.
so if you're running pots and pans, normal, sandy wash, China crystal, whatever it is, whatever the main wash maximum temperature calls for, we get there regardless, because our machines are not driven by time, they are driven by condition.
Mm.
We also provide the same functionality and standards in the final rinse. And most of the time, the final rinse is hotter than the main wash.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, it would be very common to have, say, a 140-degree main wash, but a 167-degree final rinse, or vice versa, or both, or whatever. But my point is that we guarantee the temperatures regardless. So whatever machine you buy, whatever cycle you run, the main wash temperatures and the final rinse temperatures are guaranteed. And those temperatures are hot enough. For example, it's not uncommon for 140 degrees to be a commonly referred to number for at least breaking down proteins, starches, fats, and rinsing away bacteria. Because one of the things you've got to understand is that bacteriological cleaning doesn't necessarily mean killing bacteria. It means removing it. So, for
Washing
example,
your hands.
yeah, exactly.
Wash your hands with soap and water.
Yeah. So those germs on your hands are going down the drain.
Mhm.
They may still be alive.
Mhm.
Okay. They may be inactivated, which is a word they use. That doesn't mean they're dead. They're just kind of in stasis. Okay. But
Mhm.
they're no longer on your hand, or they're no longer on your plate. They're no longer on your utensils. So
Right.
that's another part of it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you kill them. You just remove them. Okay. And they'll test them with ultraviolet light to see if anything's left over. And so we pass all of those tests as well. But I promise you, this nebulousness will be focused.
Yes, yes.
I can guarantee you.
Because it's
Matter
so
of fact,
important. We understand
oh, yeah.
now how important this is. And I don't think, Jeff, that we've seen the end of this as far as, I mean, we're maybe not having this pandemic, but we're going to see, spots where we have these kind of things happen. And we're always going to have this hanging around. So we need to be extra vigilant and really understand and be educated as to what really is clean.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. As a matter of fact, there's already in Europe, there's already um, a very specific certification that hasn't made it over to the United States yet. Okay. But there's naturally, of course, right?
Yeah.
But there's very specific certification that actually includes the removal, inactivation, or destruction of COVID. So in Europe, where they are now using that protocol, we pass it with everything.
Right. Great.
It
Yeah.
just hasn't come here yet. So when it comes here, we'll pass all those tests as well. But it is interesting that that's already been developed over there. So I guarantee it'll happen here too.
Right, right. Well, they always come up with those sort of things before we do.
Yep.
They're a lot stricter about that sort of thing.
Yep.
That's for
Yep.
sure. And I have a washer and I have a dishwasher in my showroom to show you. So we hook them up to cold water because we have no hot water, so, and in my own home, I have a 24-year-old washer. I have the new washer now and dryer, but my washer and my dishwasher that is 24 years old is hooked up to cold water and it will reach all those temperatures. I
Yep.
can open it up, in mid-cycle and it's like a steam bath. So
Yep.
it heats the water up. I know that they did that in Europe, but when they came over here, because of the way that we look at energy guidelines and that sort of thing, they decided to bring hot and cold water in. But still,
Yep.
they will take, if you bring it in cold water, it will heat the water up for you. That's
Yep.
pretty amazing that it will do that and sustain it, like you said. So you bring in hot water and you're using the hot water. Well, eventually the hot water is not going to be as hot. But Miele, they keep it to that temperature. How do they do that exactly?
Well, everything is driven again by sensors. It's not, it's not a time-driven heating system.
Right. Mhm.
It's a conditionally driven heating system.
Mhm.
So what that allows the machine to do is to respond to the conditions that it's given. And so, for example, one of the things I tell people all the time is that let's say you're looking at our entry level classic dishwasher,
Mhm.
okay, $9.99 classic dishwasher, right?
Mhm.
You put that on sanitize, all right? That machine, even if the water comes in at 33 degrees, it will heat that water to 167 degrees on the final rinse.
That's amazing.
Guaranteed. Okay. The main wash will be at 150 degrees.
Mhm.
Guaranteed.
Mhm.
Okay. Pots and pans reverses them. You got, 167 main wash, 150 in the final rinse. But
Mhm.
my point is the temperatures are guaranteed. And what that means is that you just don't have to worry. So it's conditionally driven. This is why I tell people all the time that if I ran, say, a normal cycle 5 days a week, so Monday through Friday, okay, and I ran it every single week for an entire year. And every time I ran a cycle, I wrote down the time that the cycle took, okay.
Mhm.
I would basically have 365 different times
Uh-huh. Yeah.
because every single, and people don't understand this. They always think, well, when the cycle time comes up at an hour and 48 minutes yesterday, why isn't it an hour and 48 minutes today? Why
Mhm.
is it 2 hours and 14 minutes today and an hour and 37 minutes the next day and 2 hours and 3 minutes the next day? It's because the machine is adapting.
Mhm.
And the fact is that when on any given day, your water can be a hotter or colder temperature,
Right.
right? You
Mhm.
may have run the tap just doing what
Exactly.
you're going to do. There's all kinds of input.
Right.
But with us, the machines always adapt because at the end of the cycle, it doesn't matter. You don't care what the machine did. You want to make sure that when you open up that door,
Mhm.
even if it took an hour and a half or 2.5 hours, you want to make sure that the dishes are clean, the glasses are clean, the utensils are clean, and if you ran sanitize, they're sanitized. You
Right.
want to make sure you don't want to worry about that. And by the way, that also accounts for every glass, every cup, every plate, every bowl,
Mhm.
every knife, fork, and spoon must have the same level of hygiene. There
Mhm.
cannot be varying levels of hygiene inside the machine. And that has everything to do with the spray arms, their pattern, their rotation, their speed, their pressure, their trajectory. Everything must be guaranteed. And we do all of that in all of our machines. No one else does that, by the way.
Mhm. And of course, it's a German machine. We got to give it that. You know, German engineering. I hate to say it, but they
Exactly.
are pretty darn good at this. That's for sure.
No, their attention to
Mhm.
detail drives me crazy sometimes, but what that allows me to do is I don't have to embellish or exaggerate, and I certainly don't have to lie.
Really, right.
Right? So
So let's talk about their washers. But I do want to mention their vacuums because of their HEPA certification
yeah,
too. Because the air we breathe is very important as much as what we put into our mouths,
no question.
that sort of thing. So on the washing machines, let's talk about that as how they
Okay.
are able to do what they do.
Okay, so with washing machines, there's actually been more published protocol for washers than there have been with dishwashers. But the thing is, you wear your clothing, so you certainly want to make sure that your clothing is as clean as possible. And one of the worst things you can do is leave residues in your clothing because things tend to stick to it, especially bacterial spores and things like that. So you want to make sure that they're very, very clean. But with laundry, there's simply been more things determined more specifically for residential laundry. So the CDC has a protocol, the NSF has a protocol, even Consumer Reports had a protocol. But what's interesting is that there's kind of a mixture of temperature and time in one. On another one, there's nothing more than, hey, just slosh it around for a while. Make sure you use good detergent and bleach,
Mhm.
okay, and it'll do fine.
Mhm.
Another one stipulates that no matter how you wash it, when you take the clothing out, 99.9% of the bacteria must be gone. Now,
Mhm.
most people don't have any type of infrared spectrometer at home or ultraviolet spectrometer at home, so they're not going to be able to test those things. So there's still some variation, okay? But interestingly, um, with washing machines, the degree of saturation makes all the difference in the world. So the drum material And the drum shape and pattern can make all the difference in the world with how readily your clothing becomes saturated with this soapy water. Okay. Add to that a temperature for a certain period of time, and then you add to the hygienic level you achieve. Add to that what the outer drum is made of, can literally rip any bit of hygiene from your clothing, because a plastic outer drum harbors bacteria.
Right.
Right. So there's all kinds of things, but I can tell you that just to give you some specifics with regard to what we do. For example, our drum, right? Both our inner drum and our outer drum in our washer are both made of nickel hardened steel. It has a higher degree of nickel, 2 points higher nickel than anyone else. That makes the steel harder. And if the steel is harder, bacteria can't burrow into it. That's number one. Number two, the surface is polished smooth. There's no grain. Bacteria loves grain.
They
But
can
they
hang
can,
on.
it's kind of like the grooves in a record, right? I mean, you can live within those grains. You can breed within those grains. Okay. Number three, our fins are not only stainless steel, they're mirrored. So they're completely glass smooth, and they're welded on with no screw heads. So the surface is harder and smoother on the inside and the outside, inner drum and outer drum, than any other drum you can buy. This rids bacteria of a place to breed. They just can't grip the steel. Does that make any sense?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And also too, you don't get that moldy, mildewy smell. That
Well,
you
you
get
just
a lot of-
nailed it. You
Yeah.
just took the words out of my mouth, because
Sorry. I'm
believe it or
sorry.
not, no, that's okay.
I had
Because
to have something to
actually,
say.
that's a great point, because one of the biggest complaints with front loading washers is the odor. And a lot of people don't realize that really two things cause that. Number one is a lot of people do warm or cold washes all the time.
Right.
That's actually bad. They don't understand that, but that's bad, because it encourages the growth of bacteria. Number two, 99% of washing machines out there have plastic outer tubs. And the outer tub being plastic is where the water sits when the machine is empty. And it's cold, and it's dark, and it's still, and it is basically a petri dish. And people can't understand why their drum smells. They're literally growing bacteria.
Right.
Well, we have none of that.
Yeah.
We have none of that. Plus, if you can believe this, all of our machines on the sanitized cycle will hold 140 degrees or higher. Okay, because it's actually higher than that, but the minimum
It's
of 140
yeah.
degrees for 50 minutes, 50 minutes.
Wow.
There is no one else that does that. I mean, you want to talk about ridding your clothing of bacteria, germs, viruses. It doesn't get any better than that until you get into lab medical. Okay. Or actually even our commercial, you're familiar with our little giants, right?
Oh, yes. We sell that.
So they get into disinfection. I mean, they go beyond sanitization. They get into disinfection. Okay. They will actually hold, 185 degrees for 15 minutes. That is a sanitization level, that is a disinfection level, not a sanitization level. So there are actually definitive protocols. The good news is that we pass them all. I mean, we pass them all. I mean, I know I'm trying really hard not to be biased here, but
Oh no, we're not.
I mean, I look at this stuff so much that it impresses me so much how far we go above what the rest of the industry does to control bacteria, kill bacteria, remove bacteria, control and kill viruses, keep the machine sanitized. All you have to do is let it do its job. You're familiar with twin dose, of course, right?
Right, of course, yes.
So, you know how I said that the CDC and the NSF actually have a protocol that says if you just use really good detergent and bleach, okay, well, in our twin dose washers, Ultra Phase 2, which is the second phase, is an extraordinarily strong solution and concentrated solution of hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is a liquid form of oxygenated bleach. So it doesn't ruin colors, but it rips the crap out of germs.
Right.
So it's a naturally hygienic drum we have naturally hygienic temperatures. Those are augmented by ultraphase 2, which is an automatic hygienic cleaning there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we pass all of these tests so far beyond it's not even funny. But what's interesting is most people aren't, meaning the machines that they have at home are not doing. I mean, they may have a cycle that's called sanitized, but
Right.
it's really not doing what they think it's doing. And they can actually end up growing a lot more bacteria than they end up killing or removing. That will never happen with us.
Mhm. I've never had a complaint or any feedback at all about mildew growing in the seals. That's
Yep.
where you see a lot of it showing up. Not that it started there, but that's where consumers will see
Yep.
evidence of the problems is in that.
Yep.
And we've never had that. I mean, they even infuse those seals with Kevlar, to enhance that
Oh
feature,
yeah.
which is amazing. But I've never had
By the
that.
way, one of the things that the CDC recommends very highly is that, and you won't, but one of the things that's very important about procedures is you need to run one hot cycle per week
Right.
in your washing machine,
Uh,
and run one hot cycle per week in your dishwasher. I mean,
mhm,
the top temperature, whatever machine you got,
mhm.
you should always run one top temperature cycle per week, even if there's nothing in the machine,
Without soap,
because at
speak without
least it
soap.
will reduce the presence of bacteria.
Right. Would you do it without soap or with soap?
Well, I mean, I would do it. I would do it with detergent because that only broadens the spectrum of removal.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in my case, I run a sanitized cycle once a week. I do it for all my whites. Okay. So I'm cleaning and whitening my clothing. I'm also disinfecting my machine.
Right. Right.
And I do the same thing with my dishwasher. I will run at least one sanitized cycle a week just to kill everything I can possibly kill. There's
Mhm.
no odor, there's no bacteria, and I'm not spreading germs. But you'd be surprised how few people do this.
I do it
You know,
actually.
they think they're saving energy, but they're actually proliferating bacteria.
Well, exactly. This is maybe one place where saving a little bit of energy isn't as important as getting rid of the bacteria, right? I mean, that is paramount, and we're seeing how big of a
No
deal
doubt.
it is. It's so important. I know that after we got our water up and running and all,
No,
we were getting water at places, and we were boiling our water trying to wash. Jeff, I took every utensil out and put it in my Miele dishwasher and ran it on sanitize,
good,
everything,
good.
everything we touched, just I didn't feel clean. And sometimes, I had 7 people at my house, because some people, relatives didn't have electricity either, at least we had electricity. They had no
Yep.
electricity and water, so we brought them over. So, the 2 of us were now 7 of us. So and every towel was sanitized. I mean,
Oh yeah.
you just don't know. And then also the water that you're bringing in. I mean, water can harbor all kinds of problems. We know that. Um, so
Absolutely.
so I
Absolutely.
myself went
Yep.
through this and saw, man, this is a big deal. We got to really understand what is clean. And when you brought this idea up, last week, or 2 weeks ago, about why don't we do something about, the guidelines and what is clean, what makes clean. I thought that was brilliant. And then we had the snowstorm. Well, that made it even more relevant.
Yep.
you know,
It
so it's
sure
just
did.
yeah, but also too, I don't know if you have more you wanted to touch on the washers, but I do want to touch on Miele's vacuums. I know that Miele, when they came out
Yep.
they were the first in the world to come out with a HEPA certified vacuum. So that means that not only
Yep.
is the HEPA certified, but the whole vacuum is certified. So you can take an expensive counter of particulates, and we have one that's like $4,000 that you can put on, and it will have zero
Yep.
particulates, Jeff, zero that will escape from
Yep.
that
Yep.
machine. So there are machines
Yep.
out there that maybe their HEPAs are decent, but their machines leak like a sieve. The people walk in with their machines and they'll say, because we do service on vacuums as well.
Yep.
They'll say, I'm sick, I have allergy problems, or I have dust problems, or whatever. I have asthma, and this is supposed to be, a HEPA machine. Well, there's a HEPA in here, but there's dust all over the machine.
Yep.
So all the dirt that you're picking up off your floor, not in your breathing space, now you've taken it, put it in your vacuum, and you brought it out to a real fine particulates. They call them LDPs, I think, lung damaging particulates, which are even worse because they
Yeah.
get in your, what are those called? Those little tiny sacs in your lung.
Alveoli.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And they
Anyway,
and they don't get out.
they don't get out, exactly. So that even becomes more dangerous. But with Miele, that's not the case. So I
No.
wanted to make a mention about that because I think that's a big deal. My daughter and I, by the way, my granddaughter and I, about a month or two ago, we were watching something. It was a movie. I think it's called Songbird on Netflix, and it was about in the year 2023, and it related back to COVID-19, COVID-20, and now it's COVID-23.
Oh boy.
And what had happened was, this is before we started talking about the mutations of the COVIDs now. It had mutated so much that if you walked outside your home, you could get it by breathing in the air.
Oh geez.
And my granddaughter said, Mimi, if we had watched this about a year ago, I would say this, no way can it be true. My poor little granddaughter is like scared to death now. She says,
Yeah.
Mimi, look, it's happening. It's happening. So who knows what's going to happen down the road or come at us. So all
Well,
these things are so important.
there's always a balance between allowing your immune system to develop,
Hmm.
but also not exposing yourself needlessly, right?
Right, right.
So to your point, our bagless and bagged machines are among the tightest in the world, especially when it comes to HEPA certification. I mean, we were the first to come out with a HEPA canister, as you know.
Hmm.
And as you pointed out, it wasn't just a filter. See, anybody can take a HEPA filter and kind of stick it on the outside of a machine,
Hmm.
say, okay, my machine is HEPA rated, but
Right.
the seals around those filters leak like sieves.
Yes, exactly.
Plus, if it's a bagless, you take the canister, dust containment off, and you empty it, and you have this poof,
Right.
and you're breathing all that. So
Hmm.
we've eliminated all of that, okay?
Hmm.
Because just like with dishwashers attaining temperature, just like washers attaining temperature and preventing bacteria from grabbing hold in the steel, just like using hydroforming to do the same thing in dishwashers. In our vacuum cleaners, the bags, have so many layers that things can't get through. The the engine filters, the electric motor filters, the HEPA filters are internal, not external.
Hmm.
Okay. So you know that machine that you use to measure particulate?
Right.
Right? You do the same. You put that on our bagless. You put it on our bagged. You're going to get that same zero, right? What's interesting is I usually let those things breathe the regular air
Uh-huh.
and count
Yes,
the particulate,
exactly. So you
and
can
then I
show
put it down to
people.
the exhaust on the
Yeah,
vacuum, and it goes to
exactly.
zero.
That's how we do it as well.
Yep.
Exactly. I mean, it's amazing. We don't do it as often because we're so confident, that if someone says, "Show me," we'll show them,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the truth, and even most air purifier, Jeff, most air purifiers, if
Don't
you
do that.
put that on their exhaust, they have a lot of junk coming out.
Mm.
Yes, it's filtered some of the air, but it's still some stuff is coming out. Not with the Miele vacuum, nothing,
Yeah.
zero. That's incredible. HEPA certified vacuum.
I've actually taken my canister vacuums, and I'll set them up on a table or something and take the hose off and just turn it on low and let it filter the air. I
Right.
use the vacuum cleaner as an air filter,
Yeah, yes.
right?
It's that
Because
clean.
it's so much better than
Yeah, and it's like everything else, the Miele's, they're super quiet, super well made, no planned obsolescence. I have customers that have had their Miele vacuums for over 20 years, and their next vacuum is the Miele vacuum. Once in a while they'll stray, but they come back. They come back, and usually it's like a year or two, and they'll even come in and apologize. I heard the British accent on TV or whatever. I thought I would try this out. And
Yeah.
and they're not cheap, and they come back in and they'll say, no, nothing like my Miele vacuum was. I'm going to go with Miele vacuum. And they
Yep.
have price points, every price point you can imagine. But they do offer some unique products for cleaning the home and your environment. And I am biased, but I'm biased because over time I have grown to love and respect and admire the ways that they develop and engineer, all in-house, by the way.
Yeah.
They don't send this out for another company to do and develop. They do this all in-house. It's just amazing. They're a unique, amazing company. And that's why our expansion into Miele, we're so
Yeah.
big into Miele. When people first come in, they'll go, is that all you sell is Miele? Because we have such a big part. No, we sell other products, but this is our favorite. This is our very, very best. And they offer every category as well. But this has been a very interesting subject. And of course, you came through like a champ again. And
Well,
guess what? We're
what?
6 minutes over our time limit.
What?
I know, again. I know. It's so
You
fast.
talk too much. That's what it is.
I know. This is true. This is true.
It's not me. It's not me. No.
Oh God, Jeff, I want to thank you again. And I think a lot of these this information, where can they find this on? Can they find this on Miele USA
It's
or?
all on the website.
Okay,
Yeah.
on the website. Okay. So that's something you could do, MieleUSA.com, where you can go on that. Go to the areas where it says discover more. Don't go right into the products, or you can contact me at Homeworks, or go to my website, homeworkssa.com. And all these unique and wonderful video podcasts we've done with Jeff and Miele, they are on my front page. You'll see Homeworks SA TV. Click on that. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, but if you don't want to, you can just go in there and pick up this, a couple of different video podcasts that Jeff has done with us. I'm sure you're going to find them educational, enlightening, and very, very informative, so that you can make your homework better for you with products that Homeworks is offering. So thank you very, very much, Jeff. I so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Denise.
Thank you.